My sister faked her surgery just to scam me and fund her vacation, but she wasn't bright enough to block me on Instagram. Turns out, she's at the same hotel my husband is staying at for his so-called business trip. They think they're smart, but they don't know I'm coming for them. My husband and I have been fighting about money. He lost his job 5 months ago, and I've been paying all the bills. Every day I tell him to look for work, but it's like he doesn't care. Last week we had a huge fight because I was late on rent, and he said it was humiliating when the landlord knocked on our door. The next morning he left for a job interview in a nearby city. Didn't even say goodbye, just left a note. The truth is, we were late on rent because I gave the money to my sister Lisa. A few days ago she called me crying, saying she'd twisted her ankle and needed surgery. I sent her the money without a second thought. Lisa's had her moments. Manipulative, sure, but she's my sister. Family. I wanted to trust her. But then, yesterday, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was Lisa, laughing, running on a beach. Her ankle, totally fine. I stared at the photo, my heart pounding. She lied, not just about her ankle. She was on vacation, using my money, while I'm here scrambling to keep the roof over our heads. And then I noticed something else in one of the pictures. The hotel she tagged. It looked familiar, too familiar. I opened my credit card app, praying it wasn't what I thought, but it was. The hotel Lisa was staying at? It's the same hotel where my husband's staying for his work trip. Everything crashed down at once. Lisa didn't just take my money. She took my husband too, and she didn't even bother hiding it, posting it all online while I'm stuck here, paying the bills and trying to keep everything from falling apart. I didn't know what upset me more. Once I figured it out, I started crying and didn't know when I stopped. I think I spent the next few hours just crying and occasionally sleeping. I knew it was true, and it hurt because I hadn't seen it coming. There were no signs, and I couldn't prepare myself. I couldn't run away from the truth. They were definitely together. I couldn't pretend it was a coincidence and tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe it was the fighting, but that wasn't my fault. The worst betrayal was my sister's. I always tried to make her happy, and here she was, having an affair with my husband and going on fancy vacations with him, paid for with my money. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. By the 4th day, I just wanted to get back at them. I wanted them to feel as hurt as I did and ruin their lives. I wasn't going to do anything while they were on vacation. I would wait for my husband to come back. My sister would probably go home, but my husband had nowhere else to go. So I waited the entire week, and last night my husband finally came home. I had prepared a feast for him. When I heard his car pull up in the driveway, I turned off all the lights and lit some candles. I had already made a path to the table with rose petals. Yes, I had put in the effort since this was probably going to be our last date night ever. He seemed pleasantly surprised when he entered the house, and was even more shocked when he realized that I had done my hair the way he liked, even though I hated, and was wearing a dress he had bought me while we were dating. I pulled out all the stops, and he was definitely enjoying it. After some time, we had dinner, and he kept complimenting me on the food I had made. When he got to dessert, I served him my special brownies, and I think he had 3 of them. Once he was done, I decided to finally confront him. I showed him the pictures my sister had posted and asked him how his business trip had been right after I handed him the pictures. He was not a stupid guy. He knew exactly what I was talking about, but tried to pretend he didn't. He said his business trip had been pleasant enough, but acted like he didn't understand the relevance of the pictures. That's when I told him that I'd called his workplace and knew he had quit his job. I had already filed for a divorce as soon as I realized he had been cheating on me and served him with the papers once he was done with dinner. I can't imagine how he was so okay with this after coming back from a week-long vacation where he had spent his money on my sister. It was disgusting, but I managed to put on my best smile and try to make him feel at home. I apologized for the fight we had before he left, and he forgave me instantly. I didn't even wait around to find out what he had to say about any of this. I walked out of the house with my already packed bags and drove to a hotel. Then I called my parents and told them they needed to stop sending money to my sister immediately. I explained the situation to them, and they were just as shocked as I was, and said they would deal with my sister. She had just started working and was yet to receive her first paycheck, so I knew she would be in trouble without my parents' help. I wish I could fly to where she was and slap the living daylights out of her, but for now, this would have to do. She would be stranded in a new city with nobody to look out for her because she had stabbed me in the back, and I guess that would be the best lesson for her. As for my husband, please don't be misled. I didn't just cook him a beautiful dinner and give him one last date to remember. He would definitely remember this, but not for the reasons people would expect. I called the brownies I made for him special because they were laced with laxatives, and he would definitely be sick for a few days. I didn't tell him about it and got rid of all the evidence, so I have nothing to worry about him. But this morning, I received a call from my husband. He told me that I needed to pay his hospital bills because that's how sick he had gotten. Of course, I hadn't intended to send him to the hospital, but I don't really feel bad for him. He says he knows I caused this but can't prove it, so I don't feel frightened either. Maybe if he hadn't spent all his money on a week-long vacation with my sister, he would have been able to cover the medical expenses. Or better yet, there would have been no expenses at all. This is completely on him, and I don't feel bad for him at all. Am I the bad person for not paying for his trip to the hospital? After all the pain they caused me, they deserve everything I'm doing to them. People can call me psychotic, evil, or heartless, but I don't care. I made all the sacrifices so they could have what they wanted, and they still betrayed me. I didn't pay for anything, and he's furious at me, which isn't surprising. But I've blocked him, so he can't reach me anymore, and I don't care what happens to him now. He had it good with me, but now he'll have to learn to be on his own. Just like my sister. Both my husband and sister had me looking out for them, but they've lost me forever. She tried to contact me a few hours ago, but I didn't answer her calls, so she spammed me with texts. Apparently, our parents told her they were ashamed of what she did and cut her off. She had to buy groceries today because everything had rotted during the week she was gone, and she accused me of trying to starve her based on an Instagram post. She can't really think I'm that stupid, but I didn't respond to her texts either and blocked her. Now she has nobody to turn to for help. How she manages to pay for things is her problem now. I'm lucky my sister forgot to block me, or I wouldn't have found out about any of this. The audacity to ask me for help after they cheated on me, as if they deserve anything now. I would have demanded the money I lent my sister for her so-called hospital bills back, but that would mean talking to her, and I'm not interested. No, my husband hasn't mentioned the divorce yet, and even if he does, I won't know unless he does it legally. He can still email me, and I hope he does soon because I don't want to waste more time being married to this piece of garbage. My lawyer is a friend, so she's not charging much, but he can't even afford one, so he's in bigger trouble than I am. I can't wait to see what he'll do now. Update 2. My husband had to stay in the hospital for 3 days and ended up with a huge bill. I don't know how he managed to pay it off. He probably had to ask his parents and friends for help since he couldn't reach me. He hasn't responded to the divorce notice yet, and I think he's going to take his time now that he can't even afford a lawyer. We haven't spoken since that night, and I plan to keep it that way. I don't want his apologies or explanations. They won't change my mind or how I feel. I don't think he will apologize anyway because he had the chance before I blocked him, but he didn't. So I'm not expecting an apology. I just want him not to contest the divorce because I don't want a long legal battle. The longer it goes on, the more I'll think about him, and I don't want that. I just want to move on now. I found out from a mutual friend. As for my sister, she went back home to live with my parents after a few days when she realized she couldn't afford to live on her own. She waited for her first paycheck, but even that wouldn't cover the cost of living in another city. She must have borrowed money from friends for the flight since she didn't have enough saved. My parents weren't willing to take her back in, even though she begged them. My mom told me it was really hard to turn her away because, despite what she did to me, she is still their daughter. They felt terrible telling her to go away while she sobbed and begged, but eventually she did leave. She's probably living with a friend now. My mom thinks she'll come back again and confess that next time she might not be strong enough to turn her away. I kind of understand where she's coming from. I'm not a mom, but I can imagine how hard it must have been for my parents to abandon their own daughter. I know she ruined my marriage, but she's still their daughter. I won't be happy if my parents take her back, but I won't hold it against them either. I have also moved in with a lawyer friend because I can't afford to keep living in a hotel on my salary. She has been kind enough to let me live rent-free. I feel really lucky and thankful because even though my sister and husband didn't care, I still have some good friends who have my back. Update 3. My husband still hasn't responded to the divorce notice. It's been almost 2 weeks, and I haven't heard from him. I don't know what he's doing or why it's taking so long, but I'm not worried about finding out. After all, he's the one who stands to lose everything if he doesn't respond in time, so it will work out fine for me. Honestly, I have no idea what he's been up to, and neither do his friends. I don't know where he is, but he's probably not living at our house. It worked out well for me since I didn't have to see him when I went back to collect my things. I've been back to the house twice to get some things I left behind. Both times I was nervous about running into him, but I didn't. He hadn't changed the locks, so I could enter easily. I think he has moved out because the house doesn't feel lived in. There's dust on every surface, and even though most things are untouched, I noticed a lot of stuff is missing. His closet is much emptier, and the refrigerator is totally empty. For those of you who have been asking, no, my sister never had any behavioral problems while we were growing up. She had always been a sweet kid and a great sister to me, so I was completely shocked by what she had done, and so were my parents. There had been no signs at all. And I do not have any proof right now that my husband had been cheating, apart from the Instagram post from my sister. I do not even know how they got together in the first place or if they are still talking, but one thing is for sure, nobody could have seen this coming. But I'm not too worried about the proof because I know I will find out. If worst comes to worst, I will convince my parents to make my sister confess about their affair and give me the proof I need. Yes, they took her back, by the way. For the record, I am not mad at my parents, and I am not disappointed that they let her come back to them. If anything, I am happy because this means they can control her, and by extension, so can I. And so I will definitely use this to my advantage during the divorce proceedings. I have already told my parents to keep an eye on her and watch her social media activity. If my parents and my sister are still in touch, then he will be done for. Hey there, it's been a while since I updated you all on what's been happening. I've been really busy with work and my divorce, so I haven't had time for much else. Yes, it's finally happening. I heard back from my husband 2 weeks ago, and he decided not to contest the divorce. We're about to start the settlement negotiations in a few days, and I'm preparing myself mentally to face him for the first time since the last night we saw each other. We haven't spoken or met since then, and I know it's going to be really weird and intimidating, but my friend is helping me stay calm. I just have to let her do all the talking, and I'll be good to go. My soon-to-be ex-husband has also been saying a lot of negative things about me on social media to gain sympathy. He's been telling people that I poisoned him and refused to pay for his medical expenses, and that I ran away with a lot of his money, which is simply not true. The opposite is what happened. I found out from our friends about this since I had blocked him and wouldn't have known otherwise. But I didn't respond to what he said and just made sure to collect the screenshots. Apparently, he has moved to a much smaller apartment and is sharing with a roommate because he can't afford the rent otherwise. I don't know what his job situation is or how he's affording a lawyer, but I guess he has one now, which is why he's feeling so confident. He doesn't even know what I can do to destroy him, so I'm just laughing it all off. He can talk negatively about me all he wants, but he doesn't know that my sister has sent me all the screenshots and proof I need to completely ruin him in court and make sure this divorce is the worst experience of his life. My parents were able to bring my sister under control and forced her to send all the proof I needed to show that he had been having an affair and had been skimping out on bills because of it. I was devastated to find out that this had been going on for months. Their affair started when my husband first learned that his company was downsizing, and my sister claims that everything was stressing him out, which is why he started venting to her. And slowly they started catching feelings for each other. All those weekend work trips he took were to see her, and even after he lost his job, he didn't tell me for weeks and pretended that he still had to go on business trips while I worked hard at my job just to put food on the table. I was truly disgusted not just by my husband, but by my sister as well. She had been my best friend growing up, and she didn't even think twice before hurting me and ruining my marriage. I couldn't believe that she was capable of doing this to me and hiding it for so long. Every time we spoke, we had a good time, and she pretended to have my back even when I told her about all the money problems and fights I was having with my husband. Meanwhile, she was sleeping with him the entire time. I don't feel bad about making my parents manipulate her and force her into sending me the proof I need. This is the least she could do for me after ruining my marriage, and they hadn't even stopped talking after I served him with the divorce papers that night. My lawyer believes that everything is sorted and we have nothing to worry about, which is good news for me. My parents have also told me they will make sure my sister finds a job as soon as possible, so they do not end up supporting her for months. She seems pretty depressed from what they told me, and I would feel sorry for her, but she brought this on herself. Their affair continued, and he even promised her that he would rescue her from whatever trouble she was in as soon as he had the money. But as we all know, he could not make that happen. He stopped speaking to her a few weeks ago. I do not know why he ended things with her, but my sister was pretty torn up about it. I guess that is why she finally broke down and agreed to help me in the divorce. She could have just not had that affair and lived her life on her own terms. But you mess my life up, then I will do the same to you. That is just karma, so I do not think I have any reason to feel sorry for her. I do feel kind of bad for myself now that the anger has worn off, and I know things are going to be over soon. I cannot help but wonder if my marriage could have ever worked. I know it is pointless to think about it now when we are getting divorced, but I just cannot help myself. I miss them both, truth be told. Sometimes I find myself wishing that things would go back to the way they were before any of this happened, but I'm trying not to let these thoughts make me soft. I cannot afford to be soft right now. I will have plenty of time to reminisce later, so I guess I will just have to push these feelings down and focus on the divorce and nothing else. Hopefully, it will work out.